Hello, Endersword here again, this time with a video on territory tactics. It is the dawn of Territory Season 2. All the territories have been reset to their default gray, and fighting is expected to start tomorrow. There's been a lot of videos on the updates to territory, like the ISO nodes, the services shuffling around, the new Monavine blueprints being added to 2-star, etc. I wanted to cover less of that stuff and more the actual fight. How do you fight in territory? How do you gain an advantage? Depending on what your level is, what your alliance's level is, what your role in that fight is going to be. And then talk about a few little things that I think some people don't know, or whenever I bring them up, there's always someone that's like, oh, I didn't know you could do that, or something like that. So the first thing I wanted to touch on is just what the scoring actually is. I've always, again, been a little surprised at the number of people that don't quite know how these things are scored and how you win or lose them. So the main scoring mechanic is simply how long your ships stay alive in the territory that you're fighting over. And it doesn't matter what strength of that ship it is, doesn't matter what level you are, doesn't matter anything like that. A Rialta and a Sanctus are each worth 1 point per minute, and it doesn't make any difference if you've killed anyone or done anything else. Simply by existing in that system, as the minute ticks over, you're going to get a point for that. So that is kind of the key. You can often just win these things purely by staying alive, and the best way that you can contribute to your alliance is by staying alive during them. The secondary points are based on the capture nodes, that you get 3 points per minute for each of these nodes that you are holding per minute. So that is obviously helpful as well, but there are usually not so many of these that it overwhelms the amount of points that you get per ship. Generally, the bulk of your score is simply going to be having ships in the system, having ships present. That's going to get you the majority of the score that you get for that territory fight. Secondarily will be the capture nodes. In the last 10 minutes of a 30-minute battle, 15 minutes of a 45, and 20 minutes of an hour-long one, basically the last third, you are going to enter what is called the overdrive. At this point, everything is multiplied by 3. So your ship, which was worth 1 point a minute, is now worth 3 points a minute. Basically, that last third of the territory fight actually accounts for 60% of the total score. So there's more things earned in that last overdrive period than there is in the previous time before that. Obviously, you want to try and work up a lead before you get into that point. But if you are behind, don't despair. You can make up a lot of ground in those overdrive periods. And I've seen a lot of alliances that were relatively close actually kind of tap out and give up on a fight, even though they definitely had the ability to come back. And my own alliance has definitely come back a number of times against opponents in that overdrive period. Actually, once we won literally in the last minute of the thing, we're able to overtake. So it gives you a really good comeback mechanic to come into it. So don't ever give up on sending your ships back unless your alliance leadership is, thrown in the towel and told people, hey, don't bother anymore. You can always kind of come back if you stay in the fight. But it really brings me to the biggest thing, which is don't die on purpose. Basically, never take a fight on purpose that you think that you would lose. And that's kind of the guiding principle for all of territory is if you are in a smaller ship and a bigger ship is coming towards you, do not intentionally engage with that ship. Try and move towards another ship. Try and just run away from them if you can. If you engage in someone else's fight. So if there's another ship in your way and you can engage them instead, it will actually kind of break the order to attack you that the first ship had sent. And then you can basically get away from it. But I've seen a lot of players kind of think of using the tactic of throwing things like a Rialto or a Botany Bay at a bigger ship, thinking that they're like slowing it down or sacrificing a smaller ship to prevent the big ship from killing other big ships. While intuitively that might make sense, in reality it doesn't. The reason why is if someone is going around with a bunch of big ships, then what you want to be doing most is waste their time. And if you throw in a ship to kill them, while my Sanctus may have been trying to target down a Corvus, then you're throwing a Rialto at it. Well, the Rialto was worth 1 point and the Corvus was worth 1 point. All you did is let me kill a ship quicker than I would have if I hit the target that I actually wanted to. So if it took me 3 minutes to fly, or 3 seconds to fly over here, and you hit me first with the Rialto, then you just let me get a kill quicker. And it doesn't matter the quality of the kill, really. What matters is whether or not I've taken a piece off the board. And then I'm still going to probably re-engage with that Corvus a second later anyway. So all you've done is kind of thrown a free kill when you could have just evaded and gotten away from me. And that's generally the principle that I want people to follow, is if you're in a situation that there are bigger ships around that you know can kill you, you want to scatter. You want to target something else. You want to move away from them. You don't want to be moving into them. You don't want to remaining in a cluster. I see a lot of people that tend to come in, they AFK, or they kind of group up in a certain area. You want to be basically as spread out as possible throughout the entire system so that every time a bigger player is going for that kill, they're having to travel a certain distance. The ideal situation for a large player is that 100% of their time is spent in combat. Every second that you make them spend in impulse speed instead of in combat is going to detract from the number of kills that they can get out of each ship that they have, and therefore let your alliance have more points for that. Even on things like a capture node, if someone with a much bigger ship is coming for you and you're sitting on a capture node, you usually don't want to abandon that. However, if you're for sure going to lose that fight anyway, at the last second, move off the node, they'll take it from you and your ship will still be alive. They don't get the free combat. So while they're now going to get that extra 3 points per minute, they don't take away the point per minute that you're getting from having that ship still alive. You can do a similar thing on nodes. If you own the territory, you can be mining on any of the ISO or material nodes that exist in the system. If someone is coming for you, you could just jump off that node at the last moment. They will instead occupy the node or go to that space and not actually attack your ship. It will kind of break the lock on it. And again, you stay alive, they get denied a combat, and they don't take you out of the battle. If you are, of course, the big player or someone, maybe you're not the biggest out there, but there's certainly targets around for you, you want to be aware of these tactics as well. You want to be going for largely your closest targets and trying to take them out as opposed to trying to fly completely across the system to target specific things, specific people. You want to just find the easiest targets. Again, it doesn't matter if you can take out somebody's Katinga versus you could take out their Botany Bay. Those are relatively equal in terms of the points that they're scoring. Taking out a bigger ship, if you can, is nice because, of course, then that ship can't kill other people, but you generally don't want to be wasting 10, 15 seconds to go after a big ship if there's a bunch of little ships right next to you. Just clear them out. And then they're going to have to waste a full 30 seconds, minute, whatever it is for them to warp back into the system. For some low-level players, it may take like 5 minutes for them to come back, especially if they don't have anything in territory already and are forced to base on the outside. So that's the general principle, is literally never intentionally take or initiate a fight that you can't win. There's obviously going to be situations where you're not sure, where you think that, there's a 60% chance I'm going to win this, so you take that fight. That's totally fine. But there's obviously many situations where 100% or like 98%, I'm definitely not going to win this. So you want to avoid those as much as possible. The heroics are not rewarded. Literally just staying alive is the thing that's rewarded in these things. Now, another thing that comes up when it comes to staying alive is often the vector that you take into a system. So if you've got nothing in a system and you just kind of click on it and warp to that system, then you're largely going to be taking a pretty similar path in. And you can see that it's a fairly predictable path that I was able to set up these Katingas in such a way that I could catch any player that is simply warping from their territory or wherever their base is, and they're going to come in on a standard vector. And I'm going to know kind of where that range is for someone coming in this direction, for someone coming in this direction, and for someone coming in this direction. And then the enemy can set up in those places in such a way that people are just going to be fed to them, that they're not going to have to chase you down, that they're not going to have to basically move very much at all, and you could just set up a death trap here. And I've seen that happen in a lot of these territory fights, particularly as people are quickly losing ships and they're trying to repair them and send them back. They're just coming down these generic warp paths. But what I wanted to kind of point out is that if you've got something in the system already that's able to spot, which is either a ship that's still in there living, or if you can at all, you want to be sending a cloaked ship to those systems. A cloaked ship also is scoring points for every minute they're alive, so it's completely worth it to send a cloaked ship in. Always keep your eyes on the system, and then you can start doing things like this. When I send my ship back, instead of coming down that death channel, I can choose other little vectors that are going to completely bypass where the enemy may have set up for those default warp-ins, and I can start coming in these weird angles that are going to allow me to kind of get behind enemy lines and then do something a little bit different. You know, if they're all guarding in this direction, so largely on this one, you'd have people here, you'd probably have people here, and you'd probably have people here. I'm able to then come in from this angle and get to these capture nodes without going through where there was probably a fleet of people waiting for me to come in, simply because I have vision on that system and I can start picking the corners off of it. The other trick that people should be aware of is the ability to stop your warp as you approach a certain system. This is really important in territory these days because of the tendency for these systems to be overfilled. And unfortunately, Scopely has not only not fixed that, but by causing people to need to go into systems and participate in fights that they're not part of in order to earn points for the battle pass, which is the stupidest thing ever. Given that they have these system limitations, it's going to cause a lot of the systems to say that they are full and that you can't warp directly into them. So when you try and warp directly into a system, it's going to give you a message like, we're full, we can't accept any more ships, whatever. What you can do, however, is go past a system. So say that the one that I was trying to get to is this level 38 one. I can actually warp past that system and then hit stop when I'm close to it in order to be able to get into it. So when I've hit this point at the Principium, then I'm going to stop my warp, and it's going to cause me to drop out, finish the last leg of my warp here, and then it's going to drop me in this system. When you do that, it bypasses the check on whether there's too many ships there, and it's simply going to let you in. So if you ever get to a point, there's two bugs basically that happen. One's not really a bug, it's just poor design, that there is a cap on the number of ships in the system. The other one that you will often face when you're fighting in territory is that for whatever reason, it simply won't let you click on the system whatsoever, that you're going to go click on it and it's just not going to register. What you can do in those cases is click one system past it instead, and then as your ship gets close, you're going to have to be quick on hitting stop. The faster your warp speed, the quicker that you're going to have to be to it. Because you're only going to have a window of a few seconds if you're at my level. If you're lower, you may have, a 10-20 second window to hit stop in order to make it stop in that system, even though that you're unable to actually click into it. And again, if you have a ship already in the system, then obviously that is a lot easier, as you could just click direct to the system, and it doesn't matter whether you could target it from the outside or not. You just kind of click on a ship, locate that ship, and it will take you in. So yeah, that's basically the individual tactics in terms of taking fights or not. Now, determining in your alliance kind of where you stand, you want to say kind of, where do I rank? Am I one of the higher PvP focused players that's going to be want to be going in with a lot of PvP ships and looking to very aggressively hunt down my opponents? Or am I going to be someone that's looking for specific targets? Maybe you're in your 40s and you want to be targeting down people that are also in their 40s or 30s. Or are you someone on the low end that is looking to be more evasive? And that's going to determine how you crew your ships, what you bring in, and ultimately what you focus on. On the lower end of things, again, everyone wants to stay alive no matter what. If I'm a player in the high 50s, I may still be running from players in the 60s because I don't want to take that fight if I think I'm going to lose it. If the more towards the lower end of that, unfortunately, it just means the more people that you're potentially going to be running away from. However, there's still a couple ways to approach that. You can load up some lower end ships that are equipped with speed crews to go after other fast evasive ships on the other side. If you load up something like a Saladin or a Vidar with the speed crew, you could still go around all territory fight, picking up Rialtas and Botany Bays and Envoys and Fortunates and things like that you can catch and run down while still staying away from your opponents. If someone's trying to chase you down in the Katinga and you're on a speed crewed Vidar, good luck to them. They're not going to get you. So you want to still be evasive throughout. If you're someone that is kind of more aggro, that you think you could take more fights, then you want to be crewing up a number of ships that you think that you can reasonably control and try and use them throughout the fight. For the remainder of your docks, you want to be putting in obviously cloak ships if you have them available, fast ships if you have those available, and even if you are someone out there fighting, you really want to always be prioritizing repairing and resending your own ships back into the system over actively killing something else. So if there's something that you can hunt down or you can repair a ship and get it back in, prioritize repairing your own ship and getting it back into fight, and then go back to the combat. For myself, I tend to crew about 3 ships for like heavy PvP that I intend to actively control, and then the other 5 ships are going to be trying to take like capture nodes or sit somewhere that is secure, that I don't need to pay attention to them too much, but I'm trying to keep them alive. I'll generally spread them out so that they're not all in one area, unless it's something like maybe I could own all 5 of these capture nodes. I would do it, but I don't want them just clumped up together where then one big person can come in and clear out all of my ships and then I'm stuck sending them all back. I largely want to send them in such a way that I don't need to babysit them too much, and I can focus on the combat. But if you're someone that's going to be on the evasive side, you want to send in your 4 or 5 ships and then be constantly just moving them around the system, around the edges, kind of keep them on the move so that no one can come up to you and take them out. And then if there are weaker players out there that you can take down, then of course do that as well. But your main priority is to stay alive and keep those points going. The other thing to consider in this is, as an alliance, what your strategy is going to be. There's 3 basic things that you can do to start a fight, basically. There is pre-staging, which is usually done when you feel that you're the superior force, or it's already the territory that you own and you're looking to defend. So if you own a territory, it's likely that before that territory fight starts, probably 10-15 minutes before, you're starting to deploy your ships out. You're taking all the capture nodes, you're getting everyone out of their docks, crewed properly, and out into space so that you can kind of display the resistance that's there and get everybody out so that the moment it starts, you're getting the most points that you can out of that defense. The alternative to that, especially if you're the attacking force or you're coming in on a territory that has no one in it, no owner for it, then you are going to be just coming in like a minute to the start or right at the start, and you're kind of trying to take advantage of the element of surprise. You're going to sweep in with everybody and try and take everything out as quickly as possible, get your guys in place, take over the nodes, et cetera, et cetera. That's a fairly common tactic. The third way to go about it is the pre-clearing tactic. This is where you take a select group of people that tend to be your highest, most active or best PvP people and send them in well ahead of the takeover time in order to clear out the enemy forces, clear out their AFK players, which there will always be a lot of people that just kind of send a ship out. But if you kill it, you notice that they don't really come back because they're not fully paying attention. So if you are an alliance that has big players that could potentially take out everyone from the enemy alliance, or almost everyone, such that you could create a mess, you want to be sending those players in ahead of time to completely clear out and weed out a lot of the low-level ones and discourage them from coming back, because if you're doing this, say, 10-15 minutes early, even 5 minutes early, they're going to be looking at it and saying, well, if I send it back, I'm just going to pay 3, 4, 5 repair bills before the thing even starts. So why don't I just keep my ships at home instead of sending them back, and then I'll just send them when the fight actually starts. So you can really reduce the population that the enemy has there, such that then when the timer actually does come up and it's ready for the rest of your alliance to flood in, you've really cleared a lot out, hopefully cleared some empty capture nodes that they can just flood in and take from you and hold, and it's kind of removed the entrenched opponent. So it depends a lot what your levels look like compared to the opponent that you think you're going to face look like in terms of which of these strategies is more effective. And generally the ones that have a few of the biggest guys as anchors tend to be the ones that can pre-clear or pre-stage a lot more effectively. If you don't have the guys that can really take out big opponents and really win the fight, then you want to be leaning more towards the numbers and the hitting rate as the territory takeover starts. There is always a weird imbalance. If you are the defender of a territory, there appear to be about 2 minutes that you can score, but the opponent cannot score yet. So there is a little bit of a scoring defender's advantage if you're the one that already owns it. So if you are someone coming in and you come in at kind of that 0 minute mark right at the start, you've got about two minutes to clear them out before your score starts to really count anyway. So if you don't think that you've got the staying power or the bigger fighters, then you kind of want to take advantage of the element of surprise and just kind of rush them as opposed to trying to establish yourself as firmly in territory. The other thing that you want to consider is which system or systems to attack first. You can divide your forces up so that you're sending some to beta, some to alpha, or you can do something that my alliance tends to, which is a beta and collapse strategy. So basically you want to attack beta first with the vast majority of your force to be going into beta and taking out the capture nodes there. There's generally more, I think about twice as many in beta as there is on the alpha side. So you want to be basically taking over that first. As they are starting to deploy their ships back, they need to warp back to beta, but if they were to die in alpha and they've got bases there, they can just deploy them out of the base and there's no actual time loss. So you want to get a foothold in beta, and then as you feel that you're dominating that space, then you want more and more of your people to collapse to alpha and start getting into the middle of their system and sit around their base clusters and picking things off as they come out of those bases as they try and redeploy them. So you basically are kind of outer fringes first and then collapsing to kind of their capital where they're sitting to pick things off. That I do find tends to work really well. The other thing is kind of a imbalanced split approach. So you send like 80% of your people to beta, but you send a couple very strong people to alpha that basically go in and just kind of wipe everyone out uncontested. Because most of the fighting is happening in your beta, a lot of their big guys are going to be then torn. Do I go to beta to try and defend the major fighting there, or do I stay in alpha to try and fight the couple of big guys that are wrecking shop here? And it kind of puts them to a decision which one to do. And it's almost the case that both answers are wrong, that it's a little bit inefficient for them to do either. They kind of should be going to beta, but then they have to warp and waste time. And if they try and fight you in alpha, then they're kind of chasing down specific people. And so they're not getting the same amount of kills per second or kills per minute, I guess, that you would be getting if they went to the much more target-rich environment, but they're trying to take out and neutralize you, killing their guys. So it kind of works both ways in a sense if you split it up that way. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is, crewing, I guess, hasn't changed very much. So the main crews, the Freeman, Honor Guard, Worf, and Lorca crew is your generic kind of best PvP crew. For the ship-specific stuff, you've got Ducat, Garrick, and Billups. For an Interceptor. On an Explorer, you've got Weyoun, Pawn, and Ransom. And for a battleship, you've still got Strike Team Lon, Strike Team Ortegas, and Shax is generally what you're going to have. I've seen a lot of people swap in Strike Team Una instead of Strike Team Ortegas. That used to be better because Una takes down your opponent's shields a certain percentage per round. So by round 3, she usually got rid of all the shields entirely. Now, because of all the isolytic damage, the battles are way too short for that. So you're actually better off with the Strike Team Ortegas instead of Strike Team Una, because Ortegas has the chance of delaying weapons fire from your opponent, and that is actually way more valuable at this point in the game than it is to bypass the shields, because so much damage is done in round 1 of fights now that most fights are over by that round 1, maybe round 2 point, and your ability to delay a weapon if that goes off is certainly a lot more valuable. But crewing wise, things haven't really changed. If you are on the lower end of the player base, then you might want to look at speed crews as a way to hunt down, again, those weaker ships, not fight more directly with people your own level, but again, picking off people that are bringing in weaker ships just to get points. And again, that's hugely helpful to your alliance and contributes a lot of points by you staying alive and taking out ships that were trying to stay alive but failing to your speed crews. So I think that's it for this. Any questions below, let me know. I find that this isn't something that people talk about a lot. They tend to just assume that 2 ships are going to hit each other and how's the crew work for that. But a lot of it is the physical motion of the ships, that evading other people, the angles of attack, the way that you approach things. Always try to be thinking in terms of survivability and kills per minute. How many ships can I take out, and how long is my stuff going to stay alive? And I always want to prioritize repairing first. So thanks, everyone. Have a good territory season. And yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know any questions. Let me know any unique situations that happen with your alliance, things like that. This is can be the fun part of the game when it works well. So I hope the bugs are minimized this season.